Also Harrison Kinyanjui, who is an advocate of the High Court, just having you tea momentarily. So the question that we're broaching is, of course, the critical questions that were raised yesterday by the judges. And this is all about, I know I'm walking out on short, but this is my small kiosk.
This is your small kibanda.
Yeah, this is my small kibanda here. And of course, it's time for breakfast. We have to continue taking breakfast as we are broaching serious issues here. Before we took a short break, we were listening from Ambrose Weather. But I just want to give a handy opportunity as well to Harrison Kinyanjui to tell us just where he has been. It's been quite a while. Good morning.
Thank you. Good morning.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Sometimes it's good to take a break and allow eminent minds, Ambrose Weather, Mr. Muluka, Suba Churchill, to also expand our knowledge of our social setup.
Yes.
And as influenced by the political class.
Yes.
And of course, it's always incisive, informative, and welcome.
So you've been doggedly following what is happening from the Supreme Court from Monday. I know they always say this time forth you're not in this particular team like you were in 2017.
Yes, I was.
But you
yes,
see,
I was.
What you were?
I was in 2017.
In 2017,
I opted not to be involved there this time. I think we have a very peculiar scenario.
Yes.
Which my learned friend, Mr. Ambrose Weather, has been speaking to this morning. And for me, the unfortunate breakaway, if I'm to call it that, of the 4 IEBC commissioners, and leaving the other 3, that is the chairperson and the other 2, on one side of the wing of the IEBC, portends, it bespeaks of a very ugly scenario, which to me would be a breach of the Constitution. I don't want to say in an unforgivable way because, everything is forgivable. Because of what it could precipitate for other commissions. Suppose, for instance,
hang on, because when you joined us, we were listening from Ambrose Weather. I just wanted to get introductory remarks from. I'll come to you, so don't forget that particular point. Yes, Ambrose, I hope you've not really forgotten.
Yes, you're asking what. So I'm saying ordinarily, as has been before, I have not seen, but I suspect the commissioners would be actually engaged in the tallying process. The chairman having a pen and a paper, and his team. Then this form comes, they add, and the commissioners are saying, yes, correct. This one, correct. That one, at that moment, would have been their role. So that when they finish, say the math is correct, go and announce, or let me now go and announce. That they have done before, even when the court later on said the elections were not transparent. So that would be their role, helping together, adding the figures. But in the event that there is a walkout, and I think the Constitution may have contemplated that, then they say, where does the buck stops? And that's where the Constitution says it stops with Chebukati. So if Chebukati walked out, is the one who walked out and disappeared, then any other person coming to make an announcement will be like, Constitution doesn't allow you. We don't know you. And it would have been a crisis. So looking at it, I think that the situation having arisen, then Chebukati did the right thing. But we are chasing the wrong herring. We had a red herring. The question should have been, assuming Chebukati had his own secret tallies of 27 counties, constituencies, assuming there was rigging. And that's what the court is waiting for. At this time, it should have been put and said, now, look at the 27 constituencies that Chebukati hid under the table. Now look at the figures. That's now where you verify, and then you say, Allah, he rigged. Up to now, it turns out that there was no problem. with the 27 they're talking about. They may have been tallied when they had walked to a far-off hotel. They could have gone to one wing of Bomas or a nearby hotel. There are several hotels along the way before you come from Bomas all the way. The upper hill, if they were looking for big hotels. So the big question is, are there problems with the figures that they didn't see themselves? If the answer is yes, then it comes in the form and you nullify the election. If the answer is no, then they should tell us, why did you walk away?
Right.
And who was supposed to act in your place after running off to an ungazetted area?
The critical question was asked yesterday. Still back to this particular. Within 7 days, the presidential election, the chairperson of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission shall declare the results of the election and deliver a written notification of the results to the Chief Justice and the incumbent president. If Chebukati, God forbid, is incapacitated, is sick,
yes.
If Chebukati, God forbid, is dead,
yes.
This is a preserve of only Chebukati to announce the election.
Yes.
Looking at the other commissioners, they're not in the capacity of being judges in the High Court, of which this is also a qualification from the Constitution.
Yes.
Then what happens? Perhaps on that material day, Chebukati just flipped over and collapsed. And yes, and he can't continue. He had a day, but now he's in the hospital. So we're talking about the time framework within 7 days. Will we be in a constitutional crisis?
Yes, we would be in a constitutional crisis. And whenever there is a constitutional crisis, we go to the ground norm, the very original intention of the nation.
Well, this is where the spirit of the law really comes in.
Yes. Let me give you an example. There is a case called Oliver case Jaundo in a country, let me not name it, yes, where the constitution was thrown
Jaundo.
out. Yes.
I almost
Oliver case Jaundo.
For Mombasa Bay.
In the Jaundo case. This is another country. I don't know another country. Yes. The army took over. The army took over with the true government, just like now the army takes over. You know, when they take over, they throw the constitution out. They throw it away. Now, then, the court still remains. And then somebody went to the court to say, this government is illegal. This government is illegal. Well, if you look at it on the surface, it's illegal, but it's the government. And the dangers involved. I mean, has taken charge.
Yeah, but there's no constitution. On what basis then is it illegal? If
you know, a constitution does not go away just because somebody has come up and say,
yeah, there's no
I've walked out of it. No. It is there. But then the realities, then you look at the spirit. That interpretation would be like, what is the best next step? And in such circumstances, you would say the commission would sit and would have an acting chair. Mm-hmm. The commission would sit and have an acting chair for purposes of making the announcements. And then the old step comes in. But in this case, it was not such. We are lucky it was not such. Nobody dropped dead. Some people just chose to go and take tea elsewhere.
The commission will sit and have an acting chair.
Yes.
But looking at the other commissioners, they don't really pass muster.
That is why we are saying now it is like special circumstances requiring special actions for us to cross the bridge. It is like for you saying,
thank you.
Let me lie flat here. You walk on me.
Thank you.
You cross. Then later on we will deal with it.
All right. Barak, you want to respond to that?
Yeah, I think that speaks to the gaps.
We have a lacuna in the Constitution.
Lacuna in the Constitution. And which I think are some of the more fundamental things that perhaps the Supreme Court may want to speak to, even if it is by way of what they call obiter dicta, that they can express an opinion on the composition of the Supreme Court going forward. If we were a sober country that listens to itself, people can sit around a table and dialogue, we would by now have agreed on some of the things that need to be done to clean up our constitution so that it's not reading like it is cast in granite, and that there are possibilities of making certain corrections and changes. I say this informing myself very clearly that those who drafted this constitution, and Churchill Suba says that he was one of them, I think they did not intend the use of the word chairperson under Article 138.10 as some kind of metaphor. They did not intend it as a metonym, metonymy, where a word refers to something broader than itself. We have heard people talk about the Pentagon, for example, to signify the Department of Defense, the entire defense. Or traditionally, you refer to the army as the sword. Or here we can talk about State House. It's not the house as such. We are talking about the authority that is vested in that office. Now, the use of chairperson in this constitution was not meant in that metaphorical sense, because the same constitution very clearly in certain contexts talks about the commission and the commissioners. And therefore, here, the intention, in my view, is deliberate, that it's the person who has been elected to the office of chairperson as envisaged under Article 250 of this constitution. And therefore, there is a gap. And going forward, we need to address it. But for the time being, those who are in those offices working as commissioners need to be conscious, need to be awake to this fact. And I do not see anything wrong, as I said here earlier, with them disagreeing with the chair and disagreeing completely, but also bearing in mind that we have a country that we must carry into the future, and therefore saying things like, please record my dissension. I don't agree. Put it on record. If and when this process moves to the next legal forum, I will take a position that is different from that which has been taken here, from that which the chair intends to announce based on 138.10, which gives him the mandate to be the one to make that declaration. I don't enjoin myself in that declaration, in that opinion, and on a later day, I will revisit, as my president would say.
Good. Let's hear from Churchill Suba.
First of all, I wanted to clarify, because when Ambrose, my good friend, was speaking, he said the chairman would add and the others, are there to chorus. Yes. That is not the letter and spirit. That's how I interpreted it.
Don't
If you read the letter of Article 138, there's a whole section of this constitution that talks about procedured presidential elections. And I want to advise you, invite you to read along with me 138.2c. After counting the votes in the polling stations, which is done by the presiding officers and all that, and returning officers, the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission shall tally and verify
the count.
It doesn't say the chairman. Yes, the chairman will announce, but the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission shall tally and verify the count and declare the result. In other words, even the declaration ought to be done by the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission through the mouthpiece of the chairperson. Now, that is what these four commissioners are saying. They were not part of this.
Where were they?
No.
And what
the chairman himself.
And what announcements were they making?
No, let him finish.
They
let
did
him
not
finish.
announce anything. They did not announce. In fact, they were so honorable as not to go beyond.
They're expressing their frustration.
They are expressing their frustration. Had they
we saw
declared
them announcing results.
no,
Which results?
They did not.
No,
I mean,
just let him finish. Let him finish. Let him finish.
We need not
You
trivialize this thing that much. It's a serious issue of national concern where we are as a country. Secondly, and with respect to this, which I agree with Barack is something that we need to think about in terms of tightening the lacuna in the constitution and even the relevant laws, is that I have been an observer of the elections for the African Union, and I know that countries, different countries, even in this continent, have not made the chairmanship of the election management body a preserve of lawyers. One mistake that we who were at Bomas made was to allow lawyers like my friend here and my friend here to ring fence prestigious chairmanship positions for themselves. In neighboring Uganda, my good friend engineer Badru Kigundu chaired the Electoral Commission, an engineer. So first and foremost, we must recognize that there is no value in having chairpersons of constitutional commissions and independent offices.
Compare us with our peers, South Africa, Ghana, Nigeria, America, please. Please.
Your peer is Chebukati. That's the one I want to compare.
I'm talking about a country. Talk about country. When you talk about Kenya, please don't talk about
Uganda. Uganda is.
Look at the economy.
We got independence almost
in the
around
spirit
the same
of the
time.
East African community.
Uganda is a member of the East African community, a respected country that I visit, and every time I visit Uganda,
peers.
It is our peer. Uganda is Kenya's peer in terms of history and heritage.
Bigness.
So what I'm trying to say is that one of the reforms we must institute immediately these electoral processes are concluded is to remove the requirement, because I see no value unless the lawyers are put there to look for jobs for their colleagues.
You had Did you sleep?
Which Chebukati seems to be doing very well. Bango elections look for colleagues so that they can earn money as retainers of the IEBC. Yeah?
You are proceeding very well.
No, I'm still proceeding very well,
but started trivializing.
So I am going to suggest, having been at Bomas as a delegate, number 463, and say that one of the things we must review in this constitution is the requirement that every chairperson, including of the IBC, must be a lawyer, because I honestly do not see any value. There is no value that Chebukati has added because he's a lawyer of, qualified to be a judge of the Court of Appeal and whatever. It has added no value. We need other social scientists like Barack here to chair the IBC, because there are certain insights and experiences.
This is where Barack really agrees.
Exactly.
We have always agreed. Thank you. Let me come to Harrison. But I wanted to know, across in Ghana, where they nullified the elections as well, and Malawi, is the chair or the chairperson a lawyer from both countries, even Malawi?
Yeah.
Well, I'm not sure. He's a lawyer and she's a lawyer.
It's a tradition we must break away from.
Okay, Harrison. Let's hear from Harrison. Harrison, over to you.
I, with tremendous respect, disagree with what Suba is saying. I think there is such a negative fixation with the 4 commissioners and their supposed isolation vis-a-vis these presumed and blown out, totally out of proportions, the alleged dominance, domineering character and attitude and predisposition, ostensibly, of Chebukati. What does the Constitution say? And why has their silence been so mute for the last 12 years during the life of this Constitution? When it says in Article 138 that I want to speak to, in Article 138 3C, and this is the conduct of a presidential election. After counting the votes in the polling stations, not one polling station, not the tallying center at Bomas, the IEBC shall tally and verify the count and declare the result. You do not want to tell me, in any sense of this interpretation of this provision, that the 4 commissioners will go around 46,000 polling stations to tally, to verify, and to therefore have this result declared. What is the actual intent of this provision? It is the polling stations presiding officers. You cannot read Article 138 absent, independent of, and without reference to Article 86, B and C. Article 86 of the Constitution, in terms of B, says the votes cast, at every election, the IEBC, again, this is not the commissioners, this is the institution of the IEBC. The votes cast are counted. The IEBC shall ensure that the votes cast are counted, tabulated, and the results announced promptly by the presiding officer at each polling station. You cannot tell me 4 commissioners who then decide to break away from the other commissioners at the penultimate end of the tallying process can go and fulfill the mandate prescribed under Article 86B of the Constitution, which then is translated and brought again almost verbatim in Article 138 3C of the Constitution. It is again the IEBC. The continuity of that expression flows. And then to be so fixated to say, oh, you know, these 4 commissioners, in their own words, they were excluded by Chebukati. Come on. Let us look at the point of declaration of the results in this presidential election at the point where the voting takes place. It is through a prescribed form. That declaration is the one then that is verified in terms of authenticity.
Okay, let me butt in and ask you. Then if we go to the polling stations and we have the returning officer, so you want to tell me that the returning officer and the commissioners, they are at even kill?
Precisely.
They are on an even kill?
You see?
So there is no difference between that commissioner and the returning officer, because, you know, the voice of the returning officer and the commissioner should be one. So for that particular matter, they are on the same plane.
They ought to be.
They ought to be.
Why? Because this presiding officer is an employee, authenticated, authorized, and gazetted by law. In other words, he or she has been given the force of the law to be the voice, to be the eyes, and to be the instrumentality of the IEBC in the conduct of that election. So for our commission then to wake up and tell me that, oh, you know, I was excluded, when the constitutional imperative, the obligation to declare the result at the polling station has been fulfilled, has been met. And the duty and the responsibility of this commission is to aid and assist the chair, as my learned friend Mr. Weda is saying.
Aid and assist. I like the word you pick. Aid and assist.
Aid and assist.
Good.
But the aid and assist does not mean that, as Baraka said, if they dissent, that they are entitled then to, at their own will, in violation of the Elections Act itself and the Penal Code, because if you're an officer of the government or any of its institutions and you defy that, you want to go on your own, you want to actually place the nation's security at stake, and you want to provoke some sort of reaction in those who are naive enough to believe you, then I think you are not even fit. What they should have done is to, as I agree with Barack saying, well, record, document this, even write to the chair. Just as Honorable Justice Lenaola was saying, excuse me, it seems to us from your own conduct that this is an afterthought, a very penultimate late hour reaction, knee-jerk, if you choose, with respect to a scenario which you had probably anticipated would go your way but hasn't gone your way, and which questions and brings to question your independence. Which is why, again, I believe our leadership, the Chief Justice, was bringing out the issue of the independence. That she needs to be addressed also on those among the questions that were raised. And we would then say, this sort of conduct, if it is not brought to book, brought to heel, and at least the Supreme Court, in its wisdom, then says that this is intolerable conduct. We cannot allow this to happen. To our independent commissions, the Public Service Commission, for instance, if you were allowed to behave in this fashion, we would have a dysfunctional society. Because if a set of commissioners in the National Police Service Commission, for instance, then decides we will break away from the chair, we will have our own agenda, we will propound our own policies, what are you saying as a nation we are going to be? These ought not to be tolerated. These ought not to be given a stamp of approval. And let me finish by saying this. When you see the provisions of Article 138(10) A and B, it is very elaborate that the person to declare these results is the chairperson, as already declared at the polling stations. So these petitions have failed to demonstrate that the chairperson, Mr. Chebukati, with tremendous respect to him, has failed to honor his obligation under the Constitution to declare those results. And as said before by Mr. Wedder, look, you cannot just out of the blue say, oh, you know, this election, we as a four commissioners find it flawed and therefore not meeting the constitutional threshold. In what terms do they come with their own results and say, oh, you know, Mr. Chebukati said of the 26 constituencies or 54 or 100.
Let's hear him.
Yes.
Let me finish that point. We have these results that are not in tandem with two aspects of the result. A, what was declared at the polling stations. B, what is now being propounded or declared by Chebukati as our chair. This is our position, and these are our justifications. There are interceptions, like they say. And one of the justices at the Supreme Court used, and I think circumspectly, with wisdom, mysterious, exchange of these forms that in the air they are changing, but the physical ones, and there was a curiosity that the IEBC itself says, well, if you can change this PDF format in the manner that you're seeing, with those handwritings, you're not even presenting a handwriting expert to say that, oh, this presiding officer's handwriting is this. Now we can see a different in terms of the script or however it is. What am I saying? These commissioners were whipping up emotions with an end game, as even stated by the advocates of the IEBC. They did not want those results declared. They had, if you look at the sum total of the events at Bomas, including the provocation of violence, including the personal attack on the person of the chair, what was the intendment of that? It is to then ensure that Article 138(10)A is not met.
Thank you.
But Dibal,
you are going by order.
If the order is, it was coming this way. No. If what I understood the four commissioners to be saying is also pursuant to the very Article 86 that he's referring to, and it says that the results, now Part C, the results from the polling stations are openly and accurately collated.
By those presiding officers, but they are fixated that it ought to be them. They are now putting themselves that we are the IEBC, we are the majority. It is not those presiding.
Remember, the point I'm trying to make here is that Article 86 begins with, at every election, the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission shall ensure that.
Not the commissioners.
The Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission. And remember, in the Ngilu versus EACC case, the court found that a commission without commissioners, power of the commission vests in the commissioners.
Allow me to ask him.
And so,
with respect,
let him finish. Let him finish fast. Just a moment. Let him finish.
We are saying that the four commissioners went to Serena. They didn't want to create a scene at Bomas, which I think is decent enough. They went to a separate venue, which Barack says is ungazetted. I don't think freedom of expression has to be exercised only in a gazetted area.
Was it gazetted?
The results from the polling stations are openly and accurately collated. That was the beef with the four. And they are saying, because
at the polling
of
station,
the opaqueness,
not at the tallying center.
You see, for purposes of presidential election, the chairperson is the returning officer. So, for purposes of tallying and verification, Bomas of Kenya became equivalent to a polling station for purposes of presidential election.
No.
So, if the results from the polling station are openly, and I've already demonstrated how, 2 days before the proclamation of the results, we were no longer being shown what the tallies were. I've already said before you came that a day before, Commissioner Boyumolu comes, announces several results. A journalist from West TV asked him, what happened to the display of these results on the screen? What has happened? He casually says that, I'm going to check with my ICT department. That is when the opaqueness that the four commissioners are talking about began. Because the letter and spirit of the Constitution, and they don't have to be a lawyer to read this, plain reading of this, the results from the polling stations are openly and accurately. The four commissioners are telling us, and I was at Bomas to witness this, there was no openness anymore, and therefore they doubted the accuracy.
Thank you.
If a frog jumps out of the water and tells you the crocodile is behaving badly,
it depends on whether it's a lying.
Who am I, a terrestrial animal, to doubt the frog?
Some frogs are
the very
liars.
people who live with a crocodile in the water.
Okay. Allow me to chime in. Let me come back to you.
Some frogs are
Because
liars.
we can see, and you rightly say, from the polling station, the returning officers and the commissioners, they cannot be, they are not omnipresent to be on these polling stations, all of them.
Yeah, before Weda says, there's just one statement I wanted to make to him.
Please.
Those results are locked as at the time they're declared by that returning officer at the polling station. Chebukati can do nothing, cannot even add a comma to it, cannot even add any digit to it. The commissioners cannot add anything to it. So the openness,
so
the
it's cast in stone.
transparency.
Yeah, it's cast in stone.
It's cast, no, in that respect. And we had, and I was involved in the Michael Njohi case.
Yes.
The Michael Njohi case at the Supreme Court held that you cannot alter those results. It is only an election court that can do so. At the point of declaration at the polling station, once that is done, that is intended, Mr. Suba is talking about.
Right. Yes. Where does the minor Kiai declaration really come in? Because I think it's been looming large in this particular court, that the chair is not the IEBC and IEBC is not the chair.
Yeah, but people have been talking about it. Have either not read it? If they have read it, they have not understood it. If they have understood it, they have decided to misrepresent it.
What is your understanding?
No. I'm just reading that particular excerpt because it says also that the returning officers, once that particular, from the polling station, the announcement is that is the law of the mid and the passions. It cannot be changed.
To cogitate.
Cogitate then your point. Cogitate.
Yeah, the point is this.
Barack.
That there were people in the past who used to make certain adjustments based on some corrections, real or imaginary, at the National Tallying Center, and then they would announce results which, if you were to take the forms, like today forms 34A, as received from the polling stations, and you look at what is eventually tallied and announced, it is reflecting a different picture from what has happened at the polling stations, from what has been posted on the doors at the polling stations. And so this particular direction order by the courts was that the results as declared at the polling station are going to inform the final declaration. That if there are any variances, if there are any errors, they shall be noted. The commission shall note them at the National Tallying Center. Now, what they then went on to say was that if we were to allow the chairperson as the presidential returning officer to make these variations and then go on to declare that as the outcome of the election, it would be to donate too much power to one individual. Now that is markedly different from saying that the chairperson is the person who is going to make that declaration. In this case, you are seeing a chairperson who is working with the other commissioners. I saw repeatedly my good friend, and he is my personal friend, Justice Nyagaya, and I even communicated with him at some point to ask him, what is this about 0.01%? I hope he's watching and he can confirm that I asked him about that, and it's on this phone if you are in doubt. And he said, oh, that is an error. That I saw him repeatedly appearing before cameras, reading in a very sedulous manner. And I saw Juliana Cherera doing the same. These people were part and parcel of this tallying, this verification process, until the 11th hour when something happened. I don't know what that something that happened is. And they separated themselves from the process. And if there was something of such monumental magnitude that would make them to separate themselves from the process, I cannot fault them. However, they are organized and civilized ways of doing things in civilized forums, especially by people upon whom the nation has bestowed this kind of monumental responsibility. And that I say for the umpteenth time, record my dissension, put it down in writing that I dissent. You don't migrate to an illegal place because for this purpose, Serena was an illegal space, to then start inciting the public and telling them that we invite you also to reject these results. What was that invitation meant to trigger?
That it didn't trigger. I dare add.
All right, let's come to Ambrose.
Yes.
What I'm not really getting from this panel this morning is the fact that from the chambers they were asking very critical question.
Yes.
Njokindongo asked.
Yes.
Have we created such a powerful, chairman from this particular constitution that right now everyone is really hanging on that particular, article?
Yes.
138, the 140 that we just read.
Yes.
Because even if there is a lacuna,
Yes.
that is the constitution.
Yes.
With all its flaws, we have to take it with the rough and the smooth.
Yes.
What is the role of these commissioners? 4 of them. What is the role of a commissioner? This is my job description. That is so dramatically different from the returning officer, because I'm hearing now they are on an even kill here when it comes to elections. When do they really stop on their JD and Chebukati picks? And the question is, he's not really a spokesperson, but he's the mouthpiece of the commission. Does he speak out the collective voice of the commissioners, or it is his own?
Yes, I think if we have chosen to convolute a very straight thing,
yes,
and then to see lacunas where none exist.
No.
Let me explain.
But the chambers also has convoluted this thing. Haven't they asked this question that we're asking?
Yeah, but now I'll give you the answer. They ask the
they
questions.
Asked.
It
they
doesn't
asked the
mean
questions.
that they know it. They are the same people who made the 27 election petition decision, which I still consider it was wrong, and now it is haunting. Because some people are hinging on it that as long as a part of it is opaque, we will nullify. That's why now they have left the figures and they have gone to the chair. Now let me clarify this. The commissioners ordinarily, the results declared at the polling station and eventually certified by the constituency returning officer is basically final according to the developed jurisprudence.
That we agree.
Whether right or wrong, correct.
Correct.
So when it comes to the commission, they are supposed to tally this, whatever, whether wrong or right. Ordinarily, in ideal circumstances, which they have done before, they tally it together. They sit and tally under the chairmanship of the returning officer, presidential returning officer, who is the chair. They say, okay, this one, this one, this one, this one, this one. Their tallying could also be right or wrong. Mm-hmm. They then present it to the public and they hand it over to who? To the Chief Justice. And then they wait for the parties to say, this tallying is voodoo tally. From the polling station all the way here. And whether or not the commissioners were united, they spoke with one voice, they drank tea from one cup, the court will still look and say, okay, you are united, yes. Then looking at this, we nullify. And they did that in 2017. Now here also, whether or not some commissioners have walked away, the court will still look and say, okay, this one that was brought to us by the faction, led by the chair, let's look at it. They look at it and say, we have looked at it, it is okay. So that what lies at the heart of the matter is not the unity or disunity of the commissioners. It is the addition of the figures. We are laying emphasis on something else, leaving the main thing. By now we should have known this returning officer at Sugoi Primary School gave Honorable Ruto 2,000 extra votes. This other one at Meguena Primary School in Bondo gave Raila this. We look at this, when we minus these things, this election has issues. So it doesn't matter whether the commissioners agreed, we nullify it. Now we are thinking, oh, because there's some commissioners, 4 of them went away, something is wrong. The addition or subtraction of these figures is not based on democracy of the commissioners. They don't vote on it. Who will be asked? Who has a responsibility to bring us the results? The chair of IEBC. He gives it to us, ideally after they have tallied together with fellow commissioners. And ideally, if some of them walk away, whether the results are wrong or right, his obligation is to give us the results. After that, we set in another motion called the Supreme Court. They look at it. Once they say we agree with it, fine. Whether they are wrong or right, they can also be wrong. When they say we think the elections are okay, once they say it is final, if they think the elections are wrong,
even
if they are also wrong, that becomes, there must be where things end.
All right.
So
even if you don't have the 27 contentious constituencies.
Correct. Even if
so I should not raise special umbrage with the fact that there are some constituencies that have not been verified, tallied.
Correct. That would be a ground where you say, Chebukati, you declared results, there are not 27.
Wasn't that the case?
Just listen.
Let him finish, Barack, please.
You raise it. That could have been a mistake. I've said that the commission has to declare results, whether right results or wrong results. That's what the constitution requires of them. Ideally, we require them to declare right results. But we know there's a possibility of wrong results. That's why we have mechanisms of addressing these issues. For the presidential one, you then take it to the Supreme Court. What do you take? You say, these results, there are 27 constituencies not added. Then the court says, bring those 27. They add. After they add, they say, Chebukati, what is this you declared? Go back to elections. That is it. But we don't then say, because people are divided, people are not talking with one voice, some people are in Serena, some people are whatever, then there's a big problem. No.
There's a contradiction in what you say.
Could we come to Barack, then we'll come to you? The spirit of fairness.
Point out the contradiction.
Just hold on.
Yes,
take a mental note of that.
Before Churchill, Suba points out the perceived contradiction. It is critical to emphasize this point. I think it's not getting across, certainly not to the chair, our chair here. Yeah? The point is this.
Okay.
That to disagree is not bad.
No.
Chair.
We agree.
Chair, protect me. Chair, protect me from yourself. Yeah?
Okay.
To disagree is not bad. In fact, to disagree is very healthy.
I agree.
more so in a forum like that one. But you also have the burden of responsibility to the country. So as you disagree, do it in a manner that allows us civilized and civil continuity. That you say 27 constituencies have not been included. It doesn't matter at that point whether you have got the figures or not. You will find the opportunity to go and sit somewhere else and work on those figures. But because these 27 constituencies are not included, please record my dissension. That something funny seems to be happening with some of the forms, and I don't agree. I'm not satisfied. My conscience does not allow me to own what you are about to announce. Please record that. We will come out. You will make the announcement. Then the next series of processes will begin. And as that next series of processes begins, I will come and state my position very clearly that I disagreed with what was announced. And it was recorded. And if for some reason the secretary to the gathering, who I presume in this case is the CEO, has not recorded, there will still be an opportunity for me to say, although I asked that my dissension be recorded, they did not record it. They must have had some sinister motives. But you don't set the nation on fire. We say that you do not scream fire in a crowded theater. And that's what these commissioners did. That is what I disagree with. I don't disagree with their disagreeing with their chairperson and calling him all those names. They had clearly laid out a legal path that they should have followed. And in the future, as the learned gentleman says, it's very dangerous if commissioners are going to be walking away and saying that we don't agree. If some members of the military council disagree and they go out and they denounce
use the example of the judges of Supreme Court. If some of them
now walk away tomorrow and say that we disagree with the Chief Justice, it cannot be done like that. There must be an orderly and civilized way of running the businesses of civilized entities. And these commissioners must be told that. And I do hope that the Supreme Court will tell them that.
Thank you very much.
You had a rejoinder, yes.
A rejoinder. One is the contradiction that I saw in what the two are saying, my colleagues Ambrose and Barak are saying. On the one hand, they are faulting the 4 commissioners for waiting up to the 11th hour. On the other, they are saying they should have blown their whistle in the boardroom, which would have even been known later. Article 3 of this constitution that Dibal has the privilege of, making a copy available for each one of us, says that every person has the obligation, every person has an obligation to respect, uphold, and defend this constitution. What were the 4 commissioners defending? The requirements of Article 86 that requires the commission to ensure that whatever voting method is used, the system is simple, accurate, verifiable, secure, accountable, and transparent. And I lay more emphasis on the transparency because the point that the 4 commissioners made, read together with 138C, openly and accurately tallied and verified. When they saw that that was no longer tenable, they sought a different platform to tell the public, in the principle of accountability under Article 10 of the Constitution, that whatever results are about to be announced by the chair are his own. Because the constitutional requirement and imperative is for the IEBC, not the chair, to verify and tally. And so that is the contradiction I wanted to say.
No. We agree with you.
We have the benefit of two lawyers in the room.
I agree with you, in fact.
When you are in the company of somebody harboring an intent to commit a crime,
like the four commissioners.
No.
I agree.
Like the IEBC chair, like the Chebukati.
Yeah.
Do you raise the alarm before the crime is committed?
Yes.
Or you raise the alarm when the crime is committed? You know, you can never know somebody's intent.
Like the four commissioners.
The four commissioners.
Yeah, we can't know what their intent
would
was.
be seeing the signs that Chebukati was looking